I love that New Directions has decided to lend these opportunities to the community. I mean, this is a wonderful time for us to give back and be of service. And if you don't know New Directions for Women, I really, really encourage you to look up the rich history and legacy that is New Directions for Women, because we are founded on women of being service to other women and to the community as a whole. So I'm so excited. I'm so happy for those of you that have joined. Those of you who came last time, thank you so much for your positive feedback as well. And so let's get on with it, okay? So for today, in this webinar, we're going to talk about an emotional freedom technique. And it is something that I've known throughout the decades of my practice, and I've gone in and out of using. But I have to be honest with you that I discovered during my sheltering, I'm going to call it, not quarantining, but sheltering at home during this whole COVID thing, that all of a sudden I was having these flights of anxiety, and I had not really experienced any kind of intense level of anxiety for the majority of my life that I could think of, unless something very traumatic was happening. And I don't know about you, but I don't like it. I found it really uncomfortable and really hard to manage. I didn't like how it made my body feel. And then I noticed that when you start activating anxiety in the body, automatically these really negative thoughts come attached to the anxiety. So now you're managing how you're feeling, and then you're managing how you're thinking, and it can become crippling. So any of you that have ever experienced panic, I did have an experience of panic episodes during a perimenopausal phase, which was not that long ago. And it was horrifying. And so I can relate that feeling to that. But if you've been sheltering, or your job changed, or you've lost income, or you have someone sick, or you, God forbid, you've had someone pass, I can imagine the feeling of tense, anxious, scared, stressful helplessness that you all have been going through, and that we've all been going through together. And so I wanted to give you an opportunity to look at something that can not only heal you, but heal your patients, or not only heal your patients, but heal you. And I'm so sad that often as healers, we forget ourselves in the equation. We remember to help everyone and support everyone and be of service and put others first. But we often forget how important it is to remember that if we're not in balance, nothing and no one around us can be in balance. And that's the beauty of utilizing emotional freedom technique, is to instantaneously create a sense of balance in the body. If you haven't heard of it before, it's commonly known as tapping. It's been around for a couple decades now. And originally it founded by a psychologist who was working with a woman in particular who had a phobia, and her phobia was around water. And I'm sorry, I can't think of his name at the moment. It slips my mind. But anyways, in his process of working with her, he kind of accidentally happened on this idea. He noticed that she was having this anxiety around her body while she was doing exposure therapy. So sitting in front of a pool, that he was sitting with her and talking through what she was feeling. And all of a sudden she reported to him feeling nauseous in her stomach. And he had the idea of, why not tap? To kind of tap on that, almost like in a comforting way. So I've often said to the clients to do this butterfly tapping, which creates a sense of comfort. So kind of remember this. It's not in the emotional freedom technique, but it is one that I have found is very self-soothing and soothing to our patients. So in this process, he noticed that when she started to tap, something instantaneously shifted in that fight, flight, or freeze response, which is in the amygdala in the brain. And that's what we're going to target. So I want you to remember a couple of things. I want you to remember you as a clinician, you as a therapist, you as a person in the front lines. Maybe you're a care coordinator or mental health tech. Maybe you are the CEO. Maybe you are working for a large company that serves in our field of addiction or psychology. Maybe you're the marketer or the intake person, which is extremely stressful. I want you to remember that your job too is to pay attention to your emotional fatigue and your compassion fatigue. And that means I've gotten to the point where I'm so vested in helping others, and I've expended so much of my energy, I now have little resource for myself. And emotional freedom technique can help us in this specific area of feeling absolute fatigue around being a helper. So I'm sure you're excited about that, and knowing that you can grab something today that you can take home with, that you can use immediately. And we are going to do it a little bit later. So get ready for that. Okay. And I also want to reserve some time at the end because you're probably going to have questions around it. And I'm going to trust that Tanya is going to give me some kind of signal. We're going to check in between 30 to 40 minutes, maybe. All right. So that's me letting her know. One of the things I wanted to know too, just for our general information and knowledge today, was how many of you are aware? We have a little poll that we would like to share with you. How many of you were aware of emotional freedom technique before today, or ever used tapping or heard of tapping, but just thought it's some woo, hokey, woo woo, weird thing that's out there that those weird therapists like myself like to do and get paid for, right? So, and I'm thinking, why not? You know, keep it weird, as they say in Seattle, right? So, is it Seattle? I think it is. Somebody remind me if I've gotten that wrong, but in Portland, keep it weird. It's in Oregon. Caught myself. So, you want to identify at this time if this is something that you've heard about and we're always interested in. And now you have an opportunity to go, oh, wow, look at that. We have like 53% of you that knew about tapping, but maybe haven't used it consistently. One of the errors that I have learned as a therapist that I have to check myself is I will learn these fabulous techniques and I will forget to be consistent about using them in my practice, but particularly on myself. And again, the goal today, if you don't remember anything else, is to keep yourself in balance so that others around you and your environment can stay in balance as well. Okay. So this was founded based on the idea of using acupressure points, the meridian points in the body, and using some CBT or cognitive behavioral therapy ideology around reframing our thinking, our stinking thinking, and our negative thinking. And what's important to remember about EFT is that when you start doing the tapping on your body, just by tapping onto these meridian points, which I'll show you in a little while, and if you haven't washed your hands yet, you might want to run out and wash them because you're going to be touching on your face and on your body. So just by tapping, you are sending a signal to the brain and the amygdala, where the fight, flight, or freeze response is, to calm down. And I know when you talk to yourself, oh my God, I'm so anxious, I need to calm down, this is so stressful. In between telling ourselves to calm down, we're usually activating the stress. Like, I know I can do this, but this is so hard. I wish that I would have taken care of this yesterday. Why is this happening now? Okay, I know I can handle it. So we often get stuck in this wheel where we don't just give ourselves the information we need to calm down. We keep inserting activating statements, which is what I like to call them. So when I tell myself I can't do something, something is painful or something is stressful, guess what? My brain believes it. And so my brain starts operating as if that is the absolute truth. So a small stressor, if I keep saying to myself, oh my God, this is horrific. How am I ever going to recover that paper or that money? Or how am I ever going to figure this out with this client? Or, oh my God, I'm going to get sued. God forbid you're having those thoughts, which is like really scary. As soon as you start activating that thought process in your brain, then the fight, flight, or freeze response goes wacko. It lights up on fire, and it's just like, oh my God, this is terrible. I'm not going to be able to manage it. And then the body responds to what you're thinking. The body starts to feel anxious. Your heart starts racing. Maybe you get sweaty hands. Your neck starts tensing up. You guys notice those feelings in your body when there's stress. So I want you to think of right now how many stressors that you might be managing just because of being in the situation with COVID. Right? And so as you're thinking about that right now, and those of you who have come to this event today, I want you to check in right now and notice if you have any areas of tension or distress or discomfort in your body. If you've been managing, like I had a neck pain for about 2 days that I was dealing with that I forgot until this morning to do the tapping on. Sometimes I have some knee pain or joint pain. Sometimes it's back pain. And back pain emotionally often comes from the idea of not being supported Any of you that haven't read or listened to any of the Louise Hay books, and she has a book called Heal Your Body. She does a beautiful job of connecting physical ailment with affirmation, how we negatively speak to ourselves and how we can positively speak to ourselves. Now, that book will be very useful in adding in those affirmations into the work of EFT, which requires a lot of focus on self-affirmation. Okay. So as you're focusing on those areas of the body, what I want you to know is in order to do emotional freedom technique, all you have to do is target a problem or a situation. Now I'm going to add another layer to that and say, if any of you are trained in EMDR, eye movement, desensitization, reprocessing, this is going to sound really familiar to you. And some of the EFT work kind of layers into the work that we do with EMDR, but there are some big differences that I've noticed, okay? So I just want to say to you, if you've got that information from EMDR, take it and use it in. EMDR asks that you just bilaterally stimulate both sides of the body, which can be tapping right and left, which can be holding a handheld device that's tapping for you, which could be looking at a stream of lights that move left and right, which could be looking at a therapist's hand like this. Don't anybody get hypnotized now. That moves left and right like this. So EMDR is activated by either sound tapping, hand tapping, eye movement tapping, but it is left and right, left and right, left and right. Okay. In EFT, when we do the tapping, it matters not whether you're going to tap on the right, whether you're going to tap on the left, whether you're going to do both at the same time. All that matters is tap. And what EFT is doing is it's tapping on the meridian points of your body, which, according to acupressure and acupuncturists, theoretically, is that the meridian points have areas of sensitivity because there's additional electrical energy that flows through those specific areas. So if you tap them, you're activating that energy. And anytime you activate energy in the body on a cellular level, you're creating healing. I know this from a very, very personal experience from being a cancer survivor and cancer thriver, as I currently am, and undergoing treatment. Tapping is a very useful tool for me. So I want to say to you that remember that on a cellular level, you're carrying pockets of stress, pockets of distress, pockets of dis-ease, and the tapping taps into those areas or those specific points on the body that activate energy. And then using the affirmations, it activates positive thought along with positive energy to flow through the body, go straight through the blood-brain barrier, and go into that amygdala and say, calm down. It's going to be okay. You are safe. Everything's right as rain. Don't look ahead. Don't look behind. Everything you need is right here. Okay. So now that we've I've given you a lot of juice and the backstory of it, I'm going to keep telling you and take notes in case you miss parts of it or you're like, what did she mean by that? Why does she keep moving her hands so much? It's just who I am. It's part of who I am. All right. First thing you're going to do is you're going to identify an issue or feeling of tension, distress, dis-ease, discomfort, nausea, pain, irritation, itchiness, uncomfortability in your body. And those of you who don't have anything like that going on, that's okay, because that's a simple one to notice and to target. I want you to target an issue. I want you to think of an issue right now that you're struggling with. Might have been pre-COVID. It might have come up during COVID. It might be happening right now today. Maybe you have a child who's really struggling and suffering and you can't seem to help them move past whatever their issues are. Maybe you have a husband who's sick. Maybe you just put your doggy down. One of your beautiful fur babies just passed away. Maybe you have an elderly parent you're having to take care of, and then you're trying to manage that with the COVID and the social distancing and all this nonsense. Maybe you're a new mama with a new baby and you're trying to deal with all those stressors and not getting any sleep. Maybe you're the sole income breadwinner of your family and you just lost your job. Maybe you're a pastor and you've lost a lot of your parishioners during this time. And like the rest of us, Maybe you're an advocate or a clinician that's working into the field of substance abuse, addiction, and mental health, and you're seeing the incredible rise in the pain and suffering of our clients, and many of those who are not coming into treatment because of their own fears around COVID and because their addiction has gotten so far out of hand that they're not even thinking about ways to get healthy. So now I've reached all of you because I've given such a wide range of things that you can focus on. Take that issue that you're thinking about, take that worry, take that concern, and I want you to just notice it. And as you notice it, kind of just hold it in your consciousness in the front of your mind. If it's financial, like, oh my God, I just need some additional resources, or I just need time to catch up or get through this. Now, I want you to give it a number. I want you to measure it on a scale from 0 to 10 of stress. So this is a distress level scale, I'm going to call it, because I'm forgetting the name now of what it is. But it's a distress level scale. It'll probably come to me later, or somebody put it in the chat room if they know what it is. Because in EMDR, we have specific names for it. It's your SUD. So it's, SUD. Somebody look it up. See, this is what happens because I'm very spontaneous. So then I forget there's these little pockets of information that I'm going to need to repeat, and they go right out my brain. I'm going to tap on that I stopped doing that. All right. So now give it a number from 0 to 10, 0 being neutral and 10 being the worst stressful feeling that you can imagine. And take your issue, take your thought. And I want to say this to you. I'm going to even broach even into a broader concept of how the flow of energy works between us as human beings. If you can't come up with something, think of a worry or concern of a loved one that they have spoken to you about, that you are now connected to in your own concern and worry. Thank you. Whoever put it up, it's subjective units of distress, also called subjective units of distress, SUDS. Thank you. I don't know who put that up, but God bless you. Later, I'm going to see in the chat. But that popped up in the perfect timing. And I love people that have that analytical mind that keep data in their base. And I'm like, I'm that other animal. I'm that experiential animal. So if you have a worry or concern for a loved one, you can also tap on that, which is so powerful, because when you love someone, you are so connected, even on a cellular level, emotionally, physically, and spiritually, you're connected to that human, especially if it's a child or a spouse or brother or sister. And so thinking about their concern and their problem can also be activated as a stressor or worry in your body. So feel free to tap on that, okay? We all good? We're going to move forward now. Okay. Now that you've identified on a scale of 0 to 10, today I had some anxiousness. It was around a 7, and I think it was around, there's particular aspects of work that I'm recreating for myself, and I'm adding to my work arena. And so any of you have that issue where all of a sudden when you're going to try something new or you're going to add something new to your workload, you start freaking out that you're going to be doing too much and that you're not going to be able to manage it. If any of you have ever had a dream like to write a book or to do a podcast or to do something outside of what you're normally doing, and you think it's going to be too much, what if I finish writing this book? What if I sign up for that class? What if I do lose that weight? What if I do get that $1 million or land that perfect deal and that perfect job? Then what? Am I going to be able to manage it? And that's a negative thought that almost all of us have that's activated by fear in the amygdala. So I want you, as soon as you notice what your issue is, what you're targeting, how stressful it is on a 0 to 10, then I want you to tune into what are the negative things I'm telling about myself in regards to this stressor. So with EFT, the certain points of the meridian are as follows. There's the karate chop, which is right here on your hand. When you're tapping, it matters not how often or how quickly, it just matters that you tap. And in the karate chop in your hand, usually using all your fingers because that area is kind of sensitive. If you do two, it feels a little light. But to be honest, if you have any inflammation issues or arthritis as I do, and this bothers you at all, then go lighter. Do less fingers and do it less quickly or less intensely. I notice when I'm anxious, I really tap really quickly, and that's okay. You'll watch as you breathe and as you slow down that will also slow down. So we have our target. We know it's bugging us from 0 to 10. I was at a 6 or 7. I think I'm now at about a 5. I didn't have much time to tap before the class, so I'm going to do it with you. And then the next thing we have is we start to hear the negative beliefs that we have around this issue. So now we need to know where to tap. Well, you start by the karate chop. So write that down. It doesn't matter if you go left and right or you just stay on one side. This is the part that's really important. Trust your gut, trust your intuition, tune into how your body feels as you do this. Even as I'm talking to you, start doing the tapping and start breathing. Even if you're unclear or you're unsure as to what you're tapping on, trust me that you'll start to watch that as we do this, you'll notice a sensation very slowly of calm coming over you. And I'm not saying it's instantaneous, because everything that's worth doing requires effort and requires us to show up and take some action, right? So once you've done the karate chop, remember I told you wash your hands. The next thing you're going to do is there's a space between your eyebrows, and nowadays we can call it the Botox line. not that anybody does that out there, but yes. Here, and again, you can do it with one finger, and it's right at the end of where your little hairline ends and before like the bridge of your nose. And you can do just 2 fingers because it'd be hard to crowd yourself up, right? So let me know if you're following along. Somebody in the chat room just send a thumbs up. And you could do it this way. I like to do it like this. This just feels good to me. So trust yourself in what feels good to you. The next thing you're going to do is outside of the eye line. So right here, and I put a lot of makeup on today so you could really see where the end of my eye is and where this area is, because it's not back here so much in the temple, which sometimes could be a little too much. So it's a little closer to the eye, and it's kind of like that little groove in your head. Okay, so now you're going to tap there. And again, I'm using the 2 fingers because more than that feels like too much to me, but maybe you really want to get in there and that feels good to you. That's okay. All right. The next thing that you're going to do is you're going to move underneath the eyes where the top of the bone here. So I don't know what to call that bone, but right there where this bone is, where it begins this part of the structure of your face. So this one to me feels really good just using like about 3 fingers right here. And then the next one is right under the nose and in that little crease there where your lips are. Okay. So you can see it there from the side, which also gives you a lovely profile of my wonderful nose that I inherited from my father. It's a very distinct nose in our family. Practically all the members of my family have it. I see you have your hand raised. You have a question. Oh, okay. Somebody's raising their hand, and Tanya's handling that. Now, right underneath is in the lip, and I'll go back over this again. I just want you to start by getting the 9 points, including the karate chop. Under the lip. So we went from the crease in the nose to the crease right here, right underneath your lip and before your chin. And now that's your next point of tapping right there. And again, you can use 4 fingers. I prefer 2 on these smaller spaces. It's a lot less intense, I feel. And I want to tell you, as I'm talking to you, I don't know if you noticed that I started to calm down my voice. I get very passionate and very excited about doing these webinars with you. And if you watch any of my YouTube videos, I have multiple videos now on the New Directions for Women website. And if you look me up on social media under my name or Ask Gina, which is my Facebook call name, you'll see that I can't stop talking like this. I'm like ADD and going 100 miles an hour. And I noticed as I was tapping with you guys, I started dropping into my therapist's voice and my hypnotherapist voice. I'm feeling really relaxed right now. So I'm hoping some of you are feeling that as well, or just going along. If you're sitting in your house and you're saying, this is so freaking weird, this is so odd, I can't believe Gina's teaching me this right now. I don't get it, or I don't know the point of it. I don't see how this is working. That's okay. You can keep tapping even while you're having all those negative beliefs about what we're doing here. I want you to trust the process. And I want those of you who are psychologically minded or the scientists in the room to think about that centuries back, how we used to heal human beings prior to Hippocrates and coming up with the chemical combinations of medications that we have now. We started with herbs. We started with the earth, with herbs and flowers and teas and medicinal things and pastes and creams that we created to put on the body. And touch was very, very important part of the healing process. And we all know there's been many, many studies just holding a baby, the failure to thrive kind of out of the womb and throughout life has a lot to do with not being touched. We've done many studies with children who were given up at birth and they were left in homes where they weren't picked up or they weren't touched for a certain amount of time in their early infancy, and how dramatically that affected their development. So if you don't believe in anything else, remember, you can believe in touch, you can believe in the science behind touch, and doing this tapping can do this. So this point that you're watching me rigorously tap on, I'm even going to move this down a little bit. You have your collarbone here and you're going underneath that. Don't go right on the bone. That doesn't feel good. And this one I really like to use my whole hands for. Okay. So I'm hoping you're following thus far and you're seeing how easy this is. And you're wondering, why the heck didn't I do this sooner? Or why is this so easy? Or why am I struggling in therapy for so many years when I could just sit here and tap on myself? And please save those questions because I can answer all of those. And the last one is the monkey see, monkey do one. You're going to tap on your head, and the very top of your head, wherever it feels good to you, and go for it. And don't be afraid. Our skulls are really strong and powerful, and they encase that wonderful brain of ours that really sometimes needs to be awakened. Okay? So those are the points. Karate chop between the brows, right below the temple, outside the eyes, under the eyes, under the nose, under the mouth, right here, or your chin, under the collarbone. And I skipped one, so now I got to add it in. I'm sorry. I was too relaxed. The other one that's really monkey see, monkey do before this one, collarbone, is under. For ladies, there's a bra line. It's under your armpit, and that's the exact point of it. So for men, go down like 2.5 inches or 3 inches and tap here. I find this one so difficult, and it's why I often forget it. Now I'm going to tell you this, since I didn't tap it, we need to tap it. So this one is probably number 8. And then the top of the head is number 9, if you counted them all, okay, starting from the karate chop. So this one is very awkward because I have to raise my arm and my arm gets tired and I notice it, and it's not my favorite. But for one of you, you might love it and you might want to tap under your armpit all day long, and that's okay. Just hopefully you're not working out and sweating, and hopefully you wore some deodorant, right? So now that you have the points, I want you to go back and notice. If you were doing it with me, how do you feel? I feel like a little pulsing throughout my body right now. I very much noticed that my tone came really way down, and I started to feel like, ooh, like kind of like a zen, kind of relaxed kind of feeling like I get when I do yoga. And if you didn't feel that, that's okay. Keep tapping. See, my thing was at about a 5, and now it feels like it's at about a 1, if at all, which is a 0. Now, one thing I want to tell you about the SUDS is between 1 and 0 is very problematic, because most of us can't believe that by doing something so simple, we could immediately get relief. And so we hold on to the negative belief. It must be a 1 because there's no way I just cleared that whole stressful event from myself in that, 5 minutes that I was following Gina. EMDR has the same problem, where those of you who are working as practitioners, you will find your clients so resistant to saying, it's a 0. I'm not feeling anything right now. I'm feeling great. I don't have that pain in my back that I started with. And I want to share with you all. So, oh my gosh, somebody is saying from Cheryl Lane, that she's feeling very relaxed. That makes me so happy. But for me, I noticed that my neck started relaxing when I was doing that with you all. So I want you to go over this again. I know it seems very simple, and I'm going to show you the part where we get stuck. I want you to think about that issue that you're having. And if that issue you're having is financial, for example, and it's like, I had to reduce my hours when I became sheltered, and that dramatically affected my income. And there was no getting around that. There was no way for me to change that or stop it. I can't stop COVID. I currently am working on moving my cancer out of my body, but I couldn't stop it instantaneously. And that's what sent me into full quarantine shelter, right? So for you, I don't know what it is, but I have the fear of the disease, and then I had the fear of losing that financial support and comfort that I have. So if you're having anything like that, or a fear of illness or dying, or you've lost a loved one, or your fur babies, so many of my friends have lost fur babies this year. I want you to, if that's your issue, whatever it is, I want you to notice that. And then I want you to start the tapping. And I want you to hear what you say to yourself about it. So for when you start this tapping, you might be thinking all of those negative thoughts. It's never going to get better. I can't do it. How am I going to get another job right now? If I'm not able to leave my house, what am I going to do? I feel really anxious. How am I going to take care of my kids? So, when you start thinking about the problem, there's a lot of things attached to it, right? So I want you to start with this affirmation, and you can repeat it 3 times, and you can repeat it while you tap everything, or you could just start with the karate chop. And it's, even though I don't have everything that I think I need right now, I deeply and completely love and accept myself. Even though I'm having this stressor with my child right now, I deeply and completely love and accept myself. Even though I've lost my job, I deeply and completely love and accept myself. Even though I'm suffering right now, even though I've been diagnosed with COVID, even though my spouse has been diagnosed with COVID, I deeply and completely accept and love myself. Even though I don't know how I'm going to pay my mortgage, I deeply and completely love and accept myself. Even though I've had this painful headache and this arthritis, and even though I injured my back, I deeply and completely love and accept myself. Now hear me. I'm a clinician. I'm a scientist. I'm a spiritualist. I'm an advocate. I'm an inspirational being. I love life. I love people. I love hope. I love instilling hope, even though I still have all of those fears and I still have all of those doubts. I believe that the power to heal oneself is incredible. And we all possess, to some extent, how we're going to deal with any life struggle, situation, or illness. And it starts here. I understand physicians, doctors, surgeries, medical needs, medical necessities. This doesn't wipe that away, and I understand that. But the way that you confront and show up to heal your life is critical, because the difference between a patient that goes into treatment and says, I don't think it's going to work, nothing ever works for me, and the patient goes, I've got this, I know this is going to work, I feel so good about it, is night and day. You all know about the placebo effect. You all know that we've done studies giving a patient a sugar pill and giving a patient an antidepressant, and they can come out equal in terms of their healing, because they just believed. The people in the placebo just believed. So I'm asking you to take that risk with yourself, not for me, because I already believe this already works for me, is to take the risk to believe in yourself that you can heal, that you can change your thought process around being so negative, and starting to see how your own judgment and self-doubt defeats you on a daily basis and keeps you sick and keeps you limited and keeps you from doing exceptional things in your life. So even though I talk down to myself and I think I'm overweight or I don't think I'm as smart as the person next to me, I deeply and completely love and accept myself. Now, it is okay that you go through the negative thought process. So I don't know how I'm ever going to lose this weight. I don't know who's ever going to hire me. I'm getting too old. I don't know how I'm ever going to pay my mortgage or my rent if I can't find a job. Okay. Even though it's negative, release the negative communication out loud while you're tapping because it will start to shift your thinking. It will send a signal to your brain to calm down. And when you start to calm down, you're not going to want to speak to yourself in that negative manner. But it is important to dump and to flush and just to brain dump all that negativity. So believe me, it's okay to do it while you tap, as long as at the end you get back to, and even though I said all these things about my stress, and even though I'm stressed out, I deeply and completely love and accept myself. Now, you can modify that to, even though this is going on with my life, I trust in God. Even though this is happening, I know the power greater of myself will restore me to sanity. Even though I don't know how I'm going to stop drinking today, I believe that I have the ability with my higher power to stop drinking today. Now, I bring that up to you because we work in the addiction field, most of us that are on here, and you've got to be thinking like, what about somebody who's having cravings? That's really anxious and activates the body into anxiety. And what about somebody who's actively drinking? You can teach them this. You can do this yourself if you're having cravings, thoughts of relapse, if you've already relapsed, and start to say, even though I have picked back up, I believe that I have the ability to stop using alcohol and drugs. Even though this is hurting my body and I'm scared, I believe that I can stop. Even though I'm unsure of myself, I believe in my higher power. Can you see how you can interweave and just take a negative belief and then add to it those spiritual beliefs and those spiritual principles you're already practicing, or the ones your sponsor is telling you to practice, or your therapist, or your guru, or your pastor, or your spouse, or your mama. And it's always good to listen to your mama, because even though we don't want to listen to our mamas and we get mad at them, 90% of the time they actually got it right. Not all of them. I'm going to reserve that 10% for those wackadoo mamas. And I've used that term twice, and I use it with all the love in my heart and no intention of offending. It's just the language I grew up in the 60s and the 70s. We used whacked a lot. So my apologies to anyone if that was offensive. But what I'm saying to you is you have that ability. And even though you've resisted listening to those people who are loving and supporting you, you can now repeat that to yourself, even with hesitation. Even though I'm afraid to go to this AA meeting, I know that I can show up and I can keep my ears open and my eyes open. Even though I don't know if this is going to work, this tapping thing, I'm going to listen to Gina and I'm going to try it out. Even though. All right. So when you forget, what can I say to myself that's loving and that's kind and nurturing to replace those negative thoughts? If you start with the even though, it seems to naturally come out in the manner that you need to be speaking to yourself in that loving way. So now that you've done that, and now that we've tap, I want you to go back and I want you to re-rate yourself. If anyone wants to share their rating, they can. If you stayed the same, this is what I can say to you. If your number didn't budge, there is a deeper rooted issue attached to the issue that you were willing to target, which means there's some resistance and an unconscious level. You're still holding on to some other beliefs that are attached to the thing you targeted. So if it was about money, then there's other beliefs around what you can't have, what you don't deserve, that you're not good enough. And those are deeper rooted. Those might go all the way back to childhood. And that's where you continue tapping, but you may want a therapist doing it with you and guiding you to then explore those more entrenched ideas. And EMDR is also good for that too, okay? So someone was at a 6, Pritika, and now is at a 4. I love it, Pritika. So if you're comfortable, keep tapping even as we complete our process today. Just keep tapping while I'm talking. And as I'm explaining to you, if you're stuck at a number and it's not coming down, ask yourself, What else do I believe about this that I'm resisting? What other negative thing am I saying to myself? Am I not good enough? Am I am not worth healing? Do I not believe in miracles? Am I hearing my mother's voice that says you're not going to be good enough, you're not smart enough, you're not fast enough, you're not thin enough? And Beth was at a 7, is now at a 3. How beautiful is that, you guys? Like, I literally got goosebumps on that one, because when I started doing this and I thought, my God, what a gift to my patients, such a simple thing I can hand to them to do all day long. And New Directions for Women, we teach all staff and all patients how to do this. As a matter of fact, because patients rotate, I have a group with them on Wednesday, and I'm going to do this again with them because it's so important to us and we forget. And oftentimes I'll get a call and a crisis call, and they've tried every intervention and the patient wants to go ACA. And I ask them, did you tell them to tap? And are you tapping? Because you start to get activated and anxious and escalate when your patient does. No one likes to be in the presence of distress, discomfort, disease, anger, hurt, resentment. And when we are dealing with patients like this, or clients, a lot of you will, we refer to them as patients in residential and clients outpatient. So we notice that we feed off of their energy. And when they feel so horrible, we feel horrible. And then we get angry because we can't fix it because we're fixers. And then the anger kicks in. I'm not good enough. I'm not doing my job. I can't stop her. And or we might go to, this is not my fault. This is not my problem. This girl is out of control. She doesn't want it bad enough. You know, she's going to get it when she gets it. We do add some problems around de-escalating patients, around adding our own judgment that we haven't worked through. So if your numbers aren't coming down, you might have deeper belief systems that are rooted in judgment or criticism, or that you can nail and follow all the way back to your childhood. And trust that if you work on those, this will also start to alleviate in the present. You can add it in as an aspect of your therapy. Okay. So, Tanya, I think as I've done so much with explaining and the tapping, and I think that people are starting to come in with their own thoughts around it. Do you feel like this is a good time for us to tackle? I think it would be. I'd love to see your pretty face again.
Yeah, I think so. Here I am. So I would love to hear, and Gina would love to hear, of course, if you guys have any questions specifically, whether using this technique yourself, teaching it to others, anything about the history of the technique, anything around Gina's experience using it with folks. You can just put it in the chat, or you can feel free to use the Q&A function here in Zoom, whichever works best for you. But let's wait a few minutes and see if anyone has some questions or anything they'd like to pose to Gina. Okay, here we go. So Karen would like to know, Gina, do you have to tap in a specific order?
Oh no, when they originated it, they teach it to you in an order, so you'll keep repetition. Of course, we create habits by things we repeat, so just doing it in repetition. But to be honest, you'll notice sometimes you just want to tap on certain areas that feel good. And if it's out of order, makes not a difference. What matters is that you keep tapping. And if you're not having success tapping in an area, that's why all the other areas are taught, so that you can move on to a different area. Great question.
So let's see the next one. So Pritika, I hope I'm pronouncing that right. That's a beautiful name. Gina, can we explore clients' beliefs while they are tapping? Do we have certain pauses when doing the tapping with them?
So very similar to EMDR, and I'd love to hear if any of you are also certified in that. You can continue the process. It's always good to keep the flow flowing. You don't need to stop to interject into your therapy. You can ask them, just keep tapping while we keep exploring what your resistance is around this. And you'll see that they'll start to come to their own conclusions, which is really beautiful. So you can say, so tell me more about that. Now, if the client, sometimes they're too anxious and sometimes they're like, I just want to stop. That's okay. You can pause and say, okay, let's stop. Let's explore. Let's hone into what that negative belief really is. And then let's start the tapping again. So use your best judgment to see where the client is. But I like to just keep going and go. It sounds like this is about, a belief you have around your mom, and when your mom used to tell you you were stupid, because you have backstory. If they've been your client for a while, that you can quickly insert and say, does that sound right? Yeah, let's tap on that. Hope that answered you.
Good stuff. Thank you, Gina. Karen is wondering, so how long do you have to tap on each spot for it to work?
So I noticed I didn't time it. And in the work that I've done, I haven't heard anybody say there's a specific time. The original founder, the psychologist that I mentioned that was at the pool, someone branched off from what he did. He created these very deep logarithms and it was very, very involved. So it wasn't really user friendly. So the next psychologist that picks it up and tweaks it says it doesn't matter where you tap, how you tap, just tap. You'll notice you get a sense of feeling like tired. Like I was doing this for a while and then I got tired of the feeling here. So then I moved it. But I would say pay attention to it. It could be a minute per space, it could be 30 seconds in each space. You can just keep moving as long as you stay for a little bit. But I would gauge it around 30 seconds, minimum to like a minute. Some just feel better than others. This one I love. I don't know what it is, but I love that. So I could just keep doing that, for 5-10 minutes. It's so okay. Trust your intuition. That's your greatest gift, and it will be your client's greatest gift too. Can't get it wrong. Just try it.
Awesome, Gina. Great point. And actually, just very quickly before I go to Nike's question, I want to plug that Gina is doing another webinar on June 29th all about intuition and resilience. So be sure to tune into that one if you want to hear more on that. But I want to ask Nike's question, which is, would it be okay to ask someone who is stressed in a group setting to try tapping as the group session progresses and then check in with them later to see if they feel less stressed?
I love that idea. Actually, that's a great one, Nikki. I would strongly encourage that because I often will make a comment to a client who's just is too flooded to deal with whatever we're processing and say, I want you to take a minute and take some breaths. And I want you to slow your breathing down. And when you feel that you're more grounded, just kind of wink or wave at me. Just let me know and I'll come back to you. Because sometimes in a group, you have one person and it changes the whole energy of the group and you're trying to get them to focus. So I think the tapping would be great. If you've taught it, like I've taught it to all the girls, I constantly remind them throughout my normal group, you might want to tap on that. Or are you tapping on that? Or why don't you start tapping on that? Because they've learned it. So you might just do a learning session with everybody and then say, hey, periodically, I'm going to remind you to do this while we're in group. Awesome. Awesome questions.
And that's a great skill to have, Gina, because that's something that our alumni still tell me when they reach out and share how they're doing, that it's a tool that they use day in and day out. It's free. It's easy. It's something they can do on their commute. It's anytime.
Anytime. And you can teach your kids to do it, which I love. You can do it with your fur babies, although they can't tap, but you can tap on your little fur baby. And I know Tanya would love that for her fur baby.
Absolutely. I'm looking at him. He just had ACL surgery a few days ago. So I'm looking at his little furry body in the cone. He did good, but I think I'm going to do some tapping on him and see how he responds. It's a great point. Yeah, that's a great point. So does anybody have any last questions for Gina? Give it a minute or two. Well, if something does come up, just know that you can always reach out to either Gina or myself directly, and we will make sure to get that question answered. And so in closing, I want to thank you so much for joining Gina and I today for our webinar. This webinar has been recorded and we'll be sharing the link with you once it becomes available. And you will also have access to a short survey once we end this webinar. So I hope you'll please fill that out just so that we can continuously improve and we just get your ideas for additional ideas for webinars we can do in July and beyond. So if you have any questions about New Directions, or if you'd like to learn more about our addiction treatment program for women, pregnant women, women with their children right here in Costa Mesa, California, just reach out and we'll schedule a time to chat. And again, just one more little plug. Gina is doing her next webinar on intuition and resilience in just a couple of weeks, 2 weeks from today on June 29th. So hope to see you there as well. And I just want to thank you again. Hope you make it a great week. And thank you, Gina, for lending your expertise and your wisdom with us once again.